It's in the email, right, Eric?
Yes, it is. Okay, so let's get started. Good afternoon. This is the Environmental Change Research Network. I'm Bruce Reardon, the director of the network, and thank you for giving us your time here this afternoon. We're slated to go till 5 o'clock, but we may quit early. We'll see how long some of these items take. You know, we gather as ECRN for two reasons. The first is to meet and get to know each other better, with the hope that there'll be eventually more collaboration on climate and energy research. And secondly, we meet as ECRN to push info out to you. So you can see the agenda on the screen. We're going to do both here in our hour plus. Items 2, 4, and 6 are informational items about the federal climate legislation and budget. A lot of interesting things there. Then 4 is on the state of California. I'll do that one kind of quickly. We'll look at their budget and some of the research opportunities. And then 6 is news from all of you. We've picked out some things here on the agenda, but we'll add others in as you give them to us. News and all about things that are happening and going to happen on the climate world, both on the campus and at LBL. I would encourage you to use the chat box liberally to put things in there that you're doing that you'd like other people to see. We will have, as you can see in green here, a couple of networking exercises. We may have 2, we may have 3, where we're going to put you in small groups briefly to quickly introduce yourselves to other people and to tell them a few things that you're doing right now that you think others should be interested in. That part of it is kind of the cocktail party without the at least we aren't supplying the cocktails. If you are, that's okay. Semi-free country here. So that is our agenda. I am going to stop sharing the agenda so we can see everybody. And let me go on gallery and let's do quick introductions because that's, we're here to meet each other. Barbara Haya, start please.
Hi, I'm Barbara Haya. I'm a research fellow both at the Center for Environmental and Public Policy and CIEE. I run the Berkeley Carbon Trading Project, where we focus on research on the quality of carbon offsets.
Thank you. David Woolley.
Hi, I'm David Woolley. I direct the Environmental Center at the Golden School of Public Policy.
Great. Ned Moulter.
Hey everyone, I'm Ned. I'm a 6th-year grad student and I co-organize the Climate and Impacts Research Hub, which has very similar goals to this group on the grad student level.
Let's do Bhavisha at the same time. Bhavisha.
Yeah, hi, I'm Bhavisha, and I'm also a graduate student in environmental engineering and coordinating the Climate Hub with Ned.
Great. And we'll hear a little bit about that later. Carl Blumenstein.
Yeah, I'm the director of the California Institute for Energy and Environment, and we're working on a lot of climate-related projects, and I'll have an announcement about the establishment of the Citrus Climate, a new initiative at Citrus.
Great, thank you. About half the people are named David. Let's do them as a group. Dave Trinkle first.
Thanks. I'm director of the Berkeley Research Development Office in the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research.
Thanks, David. David Ackerley.
Hi, I am Dean of Rouser College of Natural Resources and playing a lead role on campaign fundraising, which I'll report on later.
Great, wonderful. Carolyn Remick next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carolyn Remick. I'm the Executive Director of the Challenge Institute for Quantum Computations.
Great, thank you. Jessica Gordon.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Gordon. I'm a climate policy fellow at the California China Climate Institute.
Great. Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle DeNevers. I'm the Executive Director for Sustainability at Berkeley Haas School of Business.
Great. Love the bear, I believe, on your wall back there. Andy Campbell, you're next.
Hi, I'm Andy Campbell, Executive Director of the Energy Institute at Haas.
Great. And another CCCI, Jen Perron. Jen?
Hi, everyone. I'm also a climate policy fellow at the California China Climate Institute. Great to be here.
Kira Stoll, I see you.
Hello. Hi, I'm Kira Stoll. I'm UC Berkeley's Chief Sustainability Officer, and I am in the Administration Division.
Great. And a couple of our friends from Berkeley Lab. Susan first.
Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Hubbard. I'm an Associate Director of Berkeley Lab. I lead the Earth and Environmental Sciences area.
Great. Welcome. And Bill Collins.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bill Collins, the Director of the Climate and Ecological Sciences Division at Berkeley Lab, and also a professor in Earth and Planetary Sciences on campus.
Great. Welcome, Bill. Let's do CLE. Jordan.
Hi all, Jordan Diamond. I am currently the Executive Director of the Center for Law, Energy, and Environment, although it is with mixed feelings that I'm saying this is actually my last week here. So I am leaving Berkeley and be returning to the Environmental Law Institute. While the search is on for a new Executive Director, Ethan Alkind, who his video's off, but he'll be on in a sec. But so Ethan will be serving as interim ED for anything needed. So we'll greatly miss all of you.
Thank you, Jordan. Yes. Ethan, you're next.
Yeah, hi, everyone. Sorry, my video's off because I'm outside for a variety of reasons. But yeah, so I'm part of the crews crying into my beer over Jordan leaving CLE. But as Jordan mentioned, I'll be contact for external type relations for CLE until we can get a permanent replacement. And in the meantime, I also direct our climate program at CLE at the law school.
Great. I guarantee you we won't find another executive director with as good a name as Hella Jordan Diamond. So it's always been my fate. Gail, you're next. Gail Brager.
Hello, my name's Gail Brager. I'm Associate Director for the Center for the Built Environment and also faculty in the Building Science program of the Department of Architecture.
Great. Eric?
Hi, Eric Geigerich. I'm the Director of the Industry Alliances Office. We work with industry partners funding research, and we also handle material transfer agreements, data transfer agreements, and some other things that some of you may see.
Good, and we'll get to one of Eric's things here at the end when we talk, do updates from all of us. And Michelle Moskowitz.
Hi, everyone. It's Michelle Moskowitz. I'm sorry I'm not on video. I might get on later, but I'm Director of Advocacy and Institutional Relations in our Office of Government and Community Relations on campus. We serve the whole campus, all the schools and departments, and orchestrate advocacy with our experts and our projects in Sacramento and in Washington, which are the realms I mainly work in. I also work a lot with our business advocacy groups in the Bay Area and Silicon Valley for joint advocacy, government advocacy. So happy to be here.
Thanks, Michelle. And I would strongly encourage, if you're so inclined, to rename yourself with your affiliation in the box. It just may help people putting a face with an organization and a name. So we'll go on to I have a couple of quick intro slides before we get to the actual agenda. So let me go back to here. And so wherever you were this weekend, at least in Northern California, you had an interesting weekend. We all did. And here are a couple of screenshots, one showing precip totals. You can find your own town or area. I'm in the I'm somewhere in here. We had 8¼ inches at our house here, about a mile south of the campus. Way more than I've never had to empty our range gauge in the middle of a storm. And on the right, if you didn't know, we have a UC Berkeley Central Sierra lab, and they tweeted this about the snow levels there and snowfall in the Sierra. So I did some work with my other network, which is local governments, and a couple of months ago with Daniel Swain from UCLA that I thought I'd just show a couple of slides. I mean, Daniel's work is all about that we're going to get more of these very wet years and more of these very dry years, and in fact have, by the literature, more of a whiplash effect, which is what we saw this weekend, going from some of the driest conditions in the last couple of years to one of the wettest weekends that we've had. Large gain in both extremes. And Daniel's research has looked at some of the things behind this. We'll have more precipitation on fewer days, but with more intense storms to go with them, and dramatically less snowpack, but more evaporation. The series of kind of paradoxes going on here, and that it's not just drought. Daniel was very careful when he worked with my group 3 or 4 months ago to say, don't be sleeping on flood, because flood is very much in our future as much as drought is. He showed some of the drawings in here from the biggest flood that California has on record. I won't say we're overdue for one here, but a modern day repeat of 1862 would really be something. And we are, by the odds makers at least, due for a storm like that sometime in the next few decades. And it's all about, as we saw this weekend, these stronger, wetter atmospheric river storms. Here's a picture, historical, and a picture of projected into the future, with a substantial increase in the strength of these AR events. Maybe not the number, but the strength of the individual events. And finally, here's one slide that I love from Dan Cahan and Mike Dettinger, who've done a lot of work on the Sierra. This is precipitation over 100 years, okay, year by year. The green is the precipitation. This is counting this in water coming through the delta. The green is precipitation from basically kind of normal rainfall events, nice rainfall events, not too hard, not too soft, but good average rainfall events. The red is the rainfall coming from the precipitation coming from atmospheric river or extreme rain events, the top 5% in terms of intensity. And you can see that while the green really hasn't changed much over 100 years, the red, goes up and down rather regularly. And this is what leads to, do we have a drought or do we have a very, very wet winter? And so it's these AR events that we're really worried about and really concerned about going forward, because they're really driving not only the immediate things like this weekend, but overall, do we get a drought or do we get out of drought and get into something much wetter and maybe even into flood conditions? So just a couple of things to kind of ground us in the beginning. Leland Koliani from Lewis Burke in DC is fabulous, as you'll see in a minute. I recorded his portion because he has young kids and East Coast, they're at dinner right now. So I've recorded a 15-minute piece with Leland, first talking about kind of quickly where we are with the climate legislation and budget legislation around climate and energy. And then secondly, what are the opportunities right now and what are the opportunities that are coming for climate and energy research funded by the feds? And the short answer is there's quite a bit coming. I'll play it in just a second. We have a 13-page handout from Leland that I'll email to everyone, so you don't have to take copious notes at this point. So let me go to Leland and we will, sorry, nope. Let me do it again. Gotta go. Share the sound and share and start.
Sure, great. Great to be with you again. Yeah, so, I'm a little bit more optimistic at the moment that Congress will be able to finalize some of these legislative packages. And in particular, when thinking about climate and clean energy issues, there's kind of three main legislative vehicles that are really important to understand. One is your annual fiscal year 22 appropriations, and all science federal agencies that fund climate and clean energy research will see increased funding. Both the House and the Senate have released their bills, and we've seen increased numbers across the board in parallel with the Biden administration's priorities and budget requests that he submitted earlier in the year. Obviously, we're in a continuing resolution until December 3rd, so we'll have to see how it's finalized, but the numbers are looking good. Then there's a bipartisan infrastructure package that passed the Senate earlier in the summer. The House strongly supports it, but they're waiting to take a final vote until the reconciliation, this large $3.5 trillion kind of social spending package comes together. But there's nothing controversial about the infrastructure package. The infrastructure package really is more about clean energy of the two topics we're discussing today. There's nothing really for climate. It's really about $73 billion in R&D for the Department of Energy in every single area of clean energy: wind, solar, nuclear, hydro, integrated energy systems, energy storage, carbon capture sequestration, you name it, it's in there. And that will be obviously really important for the country and the research community once that gets passed. The third pillar, which again is like the daily news, is this big reconciliation package. It's being whittled down slowly. It looks like it's going to be more in the $1.5 to $2 trillion range, which is still quite large, just not $3.5 trillion. And that one actually tackles a lot more of the climate provisions. So infrastructure deals more with the clean energy R&D transition. Reconciliation is where more of your climate provisions are. And that touches on everything from future directions for the National Science Foundation and center mechanisms, all the way to funding of agencies like NOAA, EPA, that deal more in the climate resilience adaptation type space. And then, of course, there is a pocket of money for DOE National Lab infrastructure that will enhance user facilities, for example, that also tackle climate and clean energy. So it looks at the moment that the goal is to try to put a framework together by the end of this week. And the rush is primarily for Biden, who leaves on Friday for Glasgow for the COP26 climate conference. There's a credibility gap for the US, and he wants to show up with really good, strong funding numbers and policy provisions that directly address climate. And the last thing I'll say from the policy perspective, something that was dropped from the legislation that environmentalists bemoan, what was called the Clean Energy Performance Program, which was intended to really carrot stick approach for those utilities that transition to clean energy technologies and met certain decarbonization goals would be rewarded and given money for meeting those goals. Those industries that did not meet those goals instead would be taxed and fined for not meeting those goals. However, Senator Manchin in particular, from a very coal dependent and also natural gas state, was worried that they would face the brunt of those fines, and so that was dropped. However, the R&D money for climate is still in the package. The $300 billion in tax provisions for renewable energy is still in the package, as well as building out electric vehicle infrastructure around the country. And then billions of dollars of state grants that are actually in partnership with academia in a lot of cases to start mapping out kind of that clean energy transition with an environmental justice component to address and understand the impacts to communities that are affected, whether it's pollution or job and workforce development issues, so they can take advantage of these next generation jobs.
Great. So that's the big picture,
yes.
Where we are and where we are between now and Friday, especially as you underlined. So, but there are opportunities right now, right? And
That's
could
right.
you show us some examples? And then I've got to pass out to the group your latest energy research snapshot, but maybe some examples, some opportunities that are coming up on both climate and energy.
Sure. So, I mean, there's actually a lot. And so, you know, I'll take a few examples by several agencies. So National Science Foundation, as I mentioned, has been given a mandate to do more in climate and clean energy. The kind of two immediate manifestations of that we saw, one is the release of the AI Institute's call, which is one of their new kind of signature center level mechanisms, in this case focused on artificial intelligence and machine learning. But one of the topics was specifically AI for climate, and specifically in partnership with USDA, looking at agriculture and forestry practices, carbon sinks, and improved agricultural practices to reduce carbon intensity of that process and water intensity, right? So that was an example of a very specific topic in climate that they want to see an AI Institute call in partnership with USDA. Then a few weeks ago, they also released a Dear Colleague letter specific to climate change. It didn't create new programs yet per se, but NSF will get about $400 million in new funding next year to focus just on climate. And this Dear Colleague letter highlights, there were, I think, 6 specific research areas that NSF is very interested in related to climate. And so again, I highly recommend that people take a look at that. And so just as an example, it's reducing greenhouse gas emissions and energy use, enhancing carbon sequestration, accelerating strategies for climate change adaptation, research addressing synergistic topics that look at all of those areas. And so they're going to use everything from also just out as the Science and Technology Center solicitation. Climate and energy will be an important focus of those. And then we are all waiting and anticipating for NSF's largest ever center calls, which will be called the Regional Innovation Engines. These are up to centers up to $200 million to fund areas. The first areas they're going to solicit are actually not directly in climate and clean energy. They're more in chemical upcycling and biotechnology and advanced computing. But there will be multiple rounds like AI institutes and STCs and ERCs. And the next round is expected to focus much more on climate and clean energy. But I highly recommend when the call comes out within the next 2 months for people to definitely submit ideas in the other category where you can still receive planning grants of a few $1 million to get ready for the next solicitation. So then, so that's just NSF. DOE, of course, is going to start releasing solicitations pretty much almost every week between now and the spring. And again, it'll touch on everything, in the climate space specifically. We're talking about calls out right now on atmospheric science and environmental sciences. Next week, you'll see one on Earth modeling. And then the 2 new big initiatives that people should look out for on the DOE side related to climate in particular are urban integrated field labs. So there's going to be a number of these type of highly instrumented centers at various cities around the country that are really looking at that nexus of the urban impact on climate change. Because it's the models actually are lacking data about urban areas. We have deployments in the tropics, in the Arctic, in Oklahoma to look at large eddies and looking at hurricanes, but not at cities themselves. And so that's going to be a high priority for DOE. And then the other one, again, tying to this environmental justice type issue, is DOE is in planning stages right now for a new national climate lab and climate centers. Not clear if national lab is kind of the same definition as a DOE national lab and all the infrastructure requirements that come with it. I think of it more as a climate lab at an HBC, at a historically Black college, university, and minority serving institutions, focused on taking all of the research and data from DOE and the labs related to climate, and then actually using it for state and local decision makers to adapt to the climate, understand the impacts on specific communities, develop actually tools that are practical and useful, as well as engage the broader community that does not have experience working with DOE and the labs, and kind of growing those relationships. And then of course, clean energy, it would take hours to talk about all the opportunities, but you will see calls, again, a lot in, for example, long duration energy storage. It's one of their big earth shots, lots of investments, a lot in hydrogen. And in particular, if the infrastructure bill passes, you're talking about $8 billion for 4 new hydrogen hubs in different parts of the country. There's $3 billion for several new direct air capture hubs around the country. And then everything else in between, and renewables and nuclear and integrated and everything else. So watch out for those because there's going to be a lot coming. And then in terms of other agencies, there's going to be significant boosts in funding to NOAA, to NASA, especially to its planetary science and kind of climate efforts, as well as even Department of Defense in terms of its military bases, facilities, and deployment, and even demonstration of new technologies. In fact, there was an announcement today that the Air Force selected its first military base in Alaska to install its first 5 megawatt microreactor to close down its coal and diesel generated facility and replace it with a micronuclear reactor. So those are examples of types of investments even Department of Defense is making, as well as looking at climate adaptation and resiliency. And then, of course, on the health impacts of climate, there will be big boosts in funding, particularly at EPA and NIH. We're talking about more than $100 million for each at EPA and NIH, specifically to work with communities to understand the health impacts of climate change and the clean energy transition. Research universities are eligible for that funding and can work with communities and state local governments in terms of what studies make sense to then drive those future decisions. But I think in short, I think regardless of the kind of final funding package that Congress completes at the end of the year, the agencies, federal agencies, are being very aggressive in putting out funding solicitations. It reflects this administration's priority in climate and clean energy, as well as this Congress in terms of the appropriations bills and the types of other innovation legislation that they've been advancing. Again, touches on climate and clean energy as a topic and a theme. Most recently, again, there was the PCAST meeting. The first one was on biopreparedness, given the COVID-19 pandemic. And then the second one was on climate, clean energy, and the environment. So again, it shows the high level priority that this administration is taking in these things. So again, there will be many, many, many opportunities of all different scales and sizes, also from the most basic research all the way to the deployment and demonstration.
Thank you. Just started using Zoom, right? Um, there you have it from Leland. There's a lot of stuff coming soon and longer term. And again, as he said at the end, no matter what's the exact package they come up with to satisfy some of the folks that are dragging us down in Congress, but there's going to be a lot. So I think the question is, how do we keep you informed and help you stay informed without overwhelming you with all of these things as the calls come out? So David Trinkle in the VCR's office does a lot of work on this and will continue to do a great job with this. And I'm going to start running faster to catch up to Dave so that I can help with this too. So for now, we'll send you this 13-page email that just came from Leland, kind of laying out in some detail a number of these different calls that are either currently out or going to be out soon. And then I'd encourage you to call David Trinkle or myself or email us for more. And we may go as far when we see something really interesting as convening a small group, see who wants to play, to talk together about something as opposed to just a more of a free-for-all. So that's that for now. Any questions? We can't question Leland, obviously, but any questions about the federal funding right now? Okay, there'll be more, and this is great news. There's really going to be a big change here pretty soon. So the next thing we're going to do is put you for 12 minutes in small cocktail hour groups of 4 people in each group, and you're to just introduce yourselves and say a couple of things that you're working on around climate and energy or what you think would be interesting. This is the part of the agenda where we try to get you all to get to know the others in the group. So I will start the, let me click on the right thing, and we have 12 minutes, so that gives each of you, if I'm doing the math correctly, 3 minutes to introduce yourself and a couple of things that would be interesting. I'll open the rooms and I'll see you in 12 minutes.
Bruce, you were signing us?
I thought I had that clicked. So obviously, hold on a second. My apologies here while I'm figuring out why this didn't do it automatically. That's how I had it set. Oh, crap. What is this? I've only done this about 100 times during the Zoom years too. Well, let's try again. Let's back out of it. I'm going to close them and automatically move all assigned participants into breakout rooms. How's that sound? And it's not doing it.
Oh, it's just giving us an option.
Yeah, it gives us
one of 7
options.
rooms.
Okay, well, we'll hope it works randomly. Pick a room and see how it goes. And if they're too unbalanced, I will rebalance them. Okay, so pick one. I don't know why it's doing it this way.
Where do we pick? I don't see how to pick.
Should be able to put next to your name. Is there? Some people don't have the latest Zoom, which maybe would keep you from doing it. Let me see if I can assign you then, if you can't do it yourself. Okay, so Bavisha. Nope, you're in. Who else? Who's on? Okay, I will start assigning people. You go to 1, you go to 2, David, you go to 3. This is clumsy. Jordan, you go to 4. Michelle, you're going to 5, and Barbara Haya 7.
I ended up in a room by myself, so I'm going to choose another one.
I'm sorry, where are you? What?
I was in 7.
Okay, well, you're.
Oh, but now
Barbara
it seems like someone did join. Okay, wait, I'll go back.
Barbara should be there now.
Okay.
Okay, have fun. Welcome back, everyone. Sorry, that was a little clumsier than it's been, but at least you got to meet a few people, it looked like, and hear a bit. We'll do one more of these. I'm going to fool with the agenda a little bit, and I'll try and get the settings correctly set this time. So we're going to go on now to the state picture. I'll do that, and then we'll jump right into campus and LBL news and announcements. We have some people ready to go with that, but you can also join the parade there when we do that. Let me go back to sharing screen and okay, so the state has just agreed on for this next fiscal year or the next 3 years, a $3.7 billion climate resilience package spread out over 3 years. And you can see some of the categories as they're trying to work from impacts. So there are a fair number of projects and research about extreme heat, a number of them under the heading of nature-based solutions, a whole series of things under ocean and coastal resilience, and then a big category of building community resilience and regional climate resilience. So you can see in this column here, third column, which department at the state is in charge of this set of money for a certain thing, like a resources agency is doing the urban greening and forestry. And you can see how they're spreading the money across the 3 years. What you can see rather quickly is that they're backloading a lot of this. It's in the second and third years of the 3.7 not nearly as much in this first year, the column for 21-22. That is not a guarantee that that money will be spent in the ways they've got it divided up here in other years. They'll still go through a budget process, but it's a pledge at this point of the various players in the legislature and the executive office, the governor's office. So you can see a number of things here, and there's research tied to a fair number of these programs and projects. I will have more information if you're interested after the meeting. You can contact me and I can get you more information. I will also send out a couple of things. Again, we're trying not to overwhelm you, but give you some amount of information. The one I will focus on here is called the Fifth Climate Assessment. And you'll see there's about 22 million in this next year for the Fifth Climate Assessment, which is a collection of individual research studies and then some statewide synthesis reports and regional reports. We did this. San Francisco Regional Report was headed up by David Ackerley 4 years ago here, and a number of us on the campus worked on this. There were 9 regional reports from around the state. There were a couple of statewide reports, one on climate equity, one kind of synthesizing all the different impacts. And then there were a whole series of technical reports. I think last time there were as many as 40 of these, which are then state money going to individual or groups of researchers to investigate certain climate impact and climate adaptation topics. So we expect that the fifth assessment is going to look somewhat like this fourth one. Originally, the first 3 all were just mainly technical reports about single topics. The regional reports and the statewide reports were an improvement last time that we put in, because people are using these regional reports very much now in looking at what are the specific impacts in, say, the Bay Area or Los Angeles or the Inland Empire or the other areas. They're just getting going, but they are hiring 4 people, and I will send out something about this. If you have students that are looking for an interesting job, there are 4 full-time jobs to go with the fifth assessment. That the hiring process is, I think, starting, or you have to have your applications in about a week. Those will be in Sacramento at the Strategic Growth Council and at OPR and at the Resources Agency. But I'll keep you informed as we go forward with all of this. At the same time, California has a draft California Climate Adaptation Strategy. It's really a state agency adaptation strategy. It does not, unfortunately, pull the regions and the locals who are doing a lot of the adaptation work, local governments and regional agencies, together with the state. But this is a good state agency adaptation strategy, very comprehensive. And you can see it's in draft, and the deadline will be November 17th to get comments in to the Resources Agency and OPR. Again, I'll send a reminder about all this stuff after the meeting. There is also now a very interesting and comprehensive Natural and Working Lands Climate Smart Strategy, and it too is a draft out for comment. That has a deadline of November 9th. And I'll again send links to these in the follow-up email. So if you want to see them, if you also want to comment, you'll be able to. So that is, for now, our state report. Any questions on those state items or comments? Okay, let's go to campus and LBL. And David Ackerley, you want to lead? You have a couple of things.
Yeah, thanks so much, Bruce. This is extraordinary, the funding that's flowing. And what I'll say is, in my role as a dean, I have been asked by the provost, the EVCP, to be a point person at the least. I'm not in charge by any means, but certainly to be a point person on any multi-unit initiatives that was primarily built around fundraising, which I'll talk about. But I certainly want to be available and work with David Trinkle and others any multi-unit larger grants where it's more than than a group of individual faculty will pull off on their own, where institutional support becomes important. I want to do my part, whether it's convening or connecting dots along with Bruce, along with Dave. So there's just so much coming. I really hope we're prepared and step up and grab some of these big opportunities. And I'm happy to do anything I can. On the fundraising, on the philanthropic fundraising side, the energy, climate, and environment is one of the themes of our $6 billion campaign. There's no one big ticket item yet. We're still working on some big things that would be extraordinary things if they came through. We could announce them in terms of big research gifts, but right now it's just a series of really nice initiatives and grants coming in. I'll share a few. One was a campus investment in the climate equity and environmental justice faculty hire. I hope that many of you have, I tell everyone about this anytime I talk to them, but if you haven't seen it, I'll put it back in the chat. We had a great story about it. 5 new faculty in environmental justice, incredible group across multiple units, plus probably about 10 more who were hired in other searches. And there's a new roundtable coming together, a climate equity and environmental justice roundtable, bringing together new hires and existing faculty. Anyone wants more information on that, I'm happy to share it offline. We got $500,000 from one donor to support student research associated with the environmental justice group, $250,000 from another donor to support the group itself, like the glue money to hold workshops and just help those faculty come together across units. And that second donor gave $250,000 for the Native American Studies cluster as well, a little more tangential to this group, but just really helping faculty clusters really be more than the sum of the parts, which is a constant challenge around here. Engineering had a $6 million plus FTE gift, right? This is a level at which you can open a new faculty line on campus, and this was in environmental engineering in CE. So those are big successes when we get privately funded faculty positions these days, trying to grow the faculty. And we will announce in a couple of weeks a $12 million gift for data sciences for the environment between environmental sciences policy and management and the new CDSS data sciences group to build a new center with high-end sort of software engineers building new tools around AI for tackling environmental problems and a lot of faculty and student engagement. So that one we're really excited about. So those are my highlights. And Bruce, is there anything else we talked about my sharing that I've forgotten?
No, that's good. Thank you, David. Okay, so we have a few others in the queue, and put your things in the your news in the chat box as well, and we can get to a whole set of people. Kira, you're next on the clean energy campus.
Great. Thanks, Bruce, and thanks for giving me a few minutes to talk about this. Hello, I know some of you probably know quite a bit about our new Clean Energy Campus initiative. Some this might be new to you, but my work with the administration and operations is focusing on what we can do to make the campus more sustainable. And I would say our biggest initiative is how can we take the energy system that we use at the Berkeley campus, the microgrid that we have, which is currently gas powered through a cogeneration plant that we own, and transform it into a decarbonized energy system. There have been a number of studies that we have done over the last 4 years on how can we look to this new system and replace an aging infrastructure and plant that we have on campus. I would say in the last year, our studies have really been able to get us to pivot to looking at not a like replacement for the cogeneration plant, but really some commitments, at least conceptually, that we should be moving away from gas and that our new systems should be electrified. And I will say in this last year, we were fortunate, 2 donors who were very interested in this Berkeley being, a leader in demonstrating this, did donate between the 2. We received $1 million to start a planning process, which we're in right now, where we're taking taking what we know we can do for the system from a high level to something through a feasibility study, so that if we can identify funding for the project, we can launch into design and construction in the next few years. And we also are working kind of on an accelerated timeline on this, because we are looking at whether there's going to be opportunities with federal funding or state funding, and the focus around, decarbonization, whether there may be some infrastructure funding that we could potentially be eligible for. Kind of a long shot, but we're looking out there. So just for this group, where we're at right now in our feasibility study is we're bringing on a financial consultant right now. They should be on board in the next week under contract, where we're really going to be looking at the model. This is not a small undertaking. We're throwing around the number of about a $400 million project for us to move to heat pump plants that are fully electrified, and add in additional renewable energy technologies in order to match the resiliency we have right now with the cogeneration plant. A lot of big electrical infrastructure that has to be done. So this financial consultant will help us kind of model what that pie will look like in terms of the funding stream. What will be debt, what could be impact investing, what could potentially be grants, what could potentially be philanthropic. We're also going to be doing a deeper dive into the technical study, because we need to understand there's a lot of pieces of that, and land use study and legal study. So I'll finish by saying I'm going to put up a link. We have a website up. There's a lot more information kind of on the technology that we're looking at, the phase we're at. For this group, I would just like to throw out there that we're also extremely interested, if we're going to make this transformation on campus, that it is beneficial and part of what we do in terms of our research and our teaching and our learning for the campus. We would like to form real living lab partnerships with this, mutually beneficial partnerships where it's enhancing the research, it's enhancing what we're doing on our operations, and create some demonstrations. So as we look at all of these funding opportunities that are out there, we would be happy to talk further with you about it, give more information, but are there some opportunities for us to partner together with research and demonstration around our projects? And I will put the link in the chat.
Great, thank you very much, Kira. Okay, let's do some quick hits. Jessica, we sent your CCCI RFP out this morning. If you could just hit the highlights and what you'd like from this group.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce, and it's great to see everyone. Yeah, I guess I just would like to say, so Bruce sent out this morning our call for proposals. This is a very open call for proposals. It's seed money for research projects about China, California, or comparative climate policy. So the overall goal of the project is to produce policy recommendations to advance climate policy implementation in California and/or China. So there's more details in the document that Bruce sent, and the call is also available on our website, so I'll make sure to put that in the chat. The application is due on November 22nd, so in about a month. I'm happy to talk to anybody more, either on Zoom or by email, if anyone has any questions. Also just want to note that this is a UC-wide call, so we welcome you to share it with other colleagues at Berkeley that you think might be interested, or at other UCs. And we also welcome you to collaborate between each other in this group, or if you have colleagues on other campuses.
Great.
So
thank you. Thanks, Jessica. And that RFP was in the email this morning, but we'll put the link to it in the follow-up email. Eric, you've got something brewing with Apple. Want to tell us a minute on that?
Well, Apple is just the next opportunity up. We're meeting with Apple tomorrow. They don't usually collaborate with universities, so this is an interesting strategy switch. But it's more of a general point that our office, the Intellectual Property and Industry Research Alliance's office, and Deborah Summers is here also with IPRA. We meet with companies periodically, mostly to work on industry-sponsored research and technology licensing, and sometimes to work with innovation and entrepreneurship programs. but we are one front door of campus, meeting with companies, and often when companies are coming wanting to form a partnership, sometimes they know of certain faculty they want to work with and want to be introduced to others. Sometimes they don't know of anyone and they want to say, how can we start a relationship? So I wanted to raise this as a point to this group, that if we're kind of in a matchmaking role sometimes. And if there are ways that we can elevate your research that may be of interest to industry partners, we'd be happy to do it. We have to know about it. And so we use Google. We also use the faculty expertise database on the VCRO website. But to the extent that we can identify possible projects of interest to industry that emerge from this group or fundable centers or programs, that even if our office doesn't end up transacting something, maybe it'll be a gift. We don't do gifts, but we're agnostic. If we're a front door and we can serve as a referral source, or if we can help transact something, I don't know quite what the next step would be, but I just wanted to flag that and say we might be able to flow leads your way for possible sources of industry funding. And if you have any particular areas where you'd like to say, well, hey, this is a fundable project, and we'd like you to know about it, so you might be able to introduce it to industry partners coming to Berkeley to look for things to fund.
Great, thank you, Eric and Deborah. I'll work with Eric and Deborah offline, and we'll figure out a way that maybe we can do some matchmaking with this group in a way. Eric, I'll be in touch then with you. Thank you, Carl. You had an announcement. We're to announcements now. So, Carl.
Yeah. So the good news is that with support from Bill and others, Mac McQuone has redirected his pledged gift from the Environmental Resilience Accelerator to CIEE, and we're using some of that funding to keep the ECRN going, and some of it to support the EcoBlock project. So I think we're still scrambling to get enough money to cover a full year for ECRN, but we're well into the spring now. The other announcement I'm going to really save for a subsequent meeting, because we're still in its infancy, is the citrus climate. We have ambitions, obviously, and the news from our earlier 15-minute piece from Leland is very encouraging. I think there are going to be opportunities to develop a substantial program, obviously engaging people from not just Berkeley, but also the other citrus campuses, which are Santa Cruz, Davis, and Merced. And as I said, the faculty director is at Davis. So I'll see if I can bring him to one of these meetings. Probably, I don't know what your plan is, Bruce, maybe every month or so. I'm really hoping we can do stuff in person very soon. I think Bruce is probably everybody is. Actually, I had an in-person meeting today with 6 people. It was outside, of course, but boy, it's just different. I'm ready.
Good. Thanks, Carl. And I want to thank Carl and David Ackerley for doing some really good work in the last month or two to find and secure the money so that this ECRN project that we've started can not only keep going, but get bigger and better. So there'll be more on that later. We're thinking through some ideas. We're going to test some of that out on all of you.
And it's not just the ECRN now. You need to think of it in terms of the ECRN and subnetworks.
Yeah,
which is
we have the carbon removal network, and we're looking at maybe a climate and health subnetwork. We'll put out some things for your response and comment. David Woolley, did you have something to announce or tell us?
Well, yeah, I was just putting it in the chat, but today we had one of our meetings of our California Green Bond Market Development Committee. It's basically a sustainable finance project associated with a state and local bonding, and the idea of trying to integrate climate risk assessment and disclosure and reporting into that very big market. And so if anybody has some interest in that or knows a donor interested in that work, there's some Ted Lamb at Berkeley Law is doing some work in this area too, hoping to partner with him. And anyway, just let everybody know that we have that project. It's got a great team of people from the whole world of bond market, government, public finance. So looking for support and partners on that. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Susan Hubbard, LBL.
Thanks, Bruce. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that there's several workshops going on. Leland mentioned a lot of things coming down the line from Department of Energy related to energy, but also the climate sciences. And we're involved in leading or co-leading 3 different workshops with DOE that have UC Berkeley folks involved. We think, these are intended to really tee up some of those opportunities. Leland mentioned one is we just finished leading an urban workshop. And so Leland mentioned the opportunity there. That's $17 million a year for 3 or 4 years. We're currently, these are workshops that are sort of staggered over time, but one is on artificial intelligence for Earth system predictability. And that will be a huge new area kind of in parallel with really the NSF AI centers that came out recently. We in November have a workshop on mountainous hydroclimate. So what does it look like as these systems are moving to low to no snow future, and how can we bring our sensors and models together to predict that? There'll be opportunities coming on that, as well as coastal hydrobiogeochemistry. So I often send these, David, to you, Bruce. I mean, if it makes sense to send up, some of these are just big centers, but there's also quite a bit for just university investigators only, right? That lab folks aren't even allowed to respond to. So I'm happy to send things if they're not widely distributed already on campus. I just wanted to also mention that Leland mentioned an Earthshot. I can't remember what it was, but Department of Energy, we had an opportunity to submit some ideas for Earthshots. These are big things that will cross different program offices from fundamental science out to the more applied. And in my organization, we submitted one on climate resilient water, on carbon capture, storage, and use, and one that touches really the value of the subsurface for a variety of energy and water and critical mineral challenges. So we're waiting to see. We do know that in addition to the long duration storage Earthshot that Leland mentioned and the hydrogen Earthshot, the next one will come out will be a carbon shot. So, we are hoping this is sort of tied into our mutual interests around this. It'll certainly be capture. We hope it'll also be store and use. And then I guess just the last thing is we lead the water hub, and this is UC Berkeley's a partner on this. This is a $100 million federal investment, but we also just recently pinned down $30 million for the state to partner on this. So it's a really nice example of federal state partnership. And the state funding is from DWR, from CEC, and the State Water Resources Control Board. It's really meant to fund the California investigators of this national hub. So it's a nice place to sort of, bring our scientists closer to the agency and the agencies closer to our science. So that's all.
Good, thank you, Susan, and thanks to Susan and Bill for support for ECRN. We appreciate it. David Trinkle and I had a conversation this afternoon. Maybe we'll win the Nobel Prize eventually for solving that puzzle of how to give information to all of you without overwhelming everyone. So it's just right. We're not quite there yet, but we're working on how we can do that and complement, because David does a lot of this of getting the research opportunities out. I'm going to try to help and support. So we'll figure out some ways there. Bhavisha, could you give us a minute or two on the Climate Hub for students that you're running? Yeah.
Yes, hi. Ned is gonna join me.
Yes.
Hey everyone, thanks Bruce. And nice to meet all of you. So we co-organize the Climate Impacts Research Hub, which is a group where grad students build a network around interdisciplinary climate change research. The main thing we do right now is a monthly seminar of lightning talks on various students' research in an easy to digest format. And the topics range basically across all the centers and divisions and departments that you all direct, everything from agricultural frontiers in the circumpolar north all the way to modeling of black carbon concentrations.
Yeah, we've had a really great turnout. We've had at least 20 students at every event, sometimes more, up to 30 or 40 students, depending who's presenting. We've had some students from Stanford and Davis and University of Arizona join our hubs. And our main goal is to connect graduate students to create a space so they can learn about other people's research, as well as create holistic and informed graduate students. So when they leave Berkeley, at least they have some sort of idea of where the frontiers are in our work. And we reached out to Bruce today to hopefully formalize our group a little bit more. Right now it's dependent upon Ned and me. And for example, I broke my arm this summer, so it was all Ned. So having some sort of more structure would, I think, really help. And there's definitely a great need amongst graduate students. And we have a great group of students looking for this. So
excellent. And I'll talk with you and Ned offline about how ECRN can help with that. We have a couple more minutes. Other quick announcements or news or questions? You can raise your hand electronically or physically. Okay, well, we'll let you out early. How's that? And I'll get the settings straight for next meeting in terms of that funny thing that happened with the breakout groups. Thank you all. This has been great, and we look forward, now that we have our funding secured, or most of the funding, to a bigger and better group with you in this year. We have I think some interesting ideas of things that we'd like to do beyond just meeting. And maybe, as Carl said, we're going to get back to actually meeting in person, which was the whole point when we started. Carl, when we sat down and talked about this, originally said, I want the meetings to be at 4 o'clock at the end of the day. I want them to involve food and drink and be a social club, because we think that goes a long ways towards getting people to start thinking about collaborating, or maybe enlarging their circle of collaborators. So we'll see about that.
Let me just jump in for 1 second here before you sign off, Bruce, and that is to say, we are still looking for funding to complete our to get us to the end of the next year. That means into July 1st. And so if you have any leads, let me know. I'm relentless. So and any thoughts you have would be greatly appreciated.
We're assuming that we don't solve the climate crisis by next spring, and that we will continue to have a need for cross-discipline research here. How's that?
I think that's a safe assumption, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Okay, thank you. Be safe, be well, stay out of the floodwaters if we get them, and see you soon. And we'll send a follow-up email with some of the materials from today.
Bruce, can you also send a roster of everyone in the group with our names?
Absolutely.
Because it's hard to keep track and remember people when you're only meeting them on Zoom, I've discovered.
Yeah, got it. So we'll send the roster and some email attachments to you in the next couple of days. Good suggestion, Michelle.
Great job, Bruce. I really enjoy these calls.
Okay. It's a great group. Thank you.
Great job.